In my almost 25 plus years of selling real estate, every seller in my experience wants the same three things when they sell their home. They want the most money in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of headaches. And they almost eventually always say something like, I don't want to give my house away, or I want to sell for market value. And I would say whatever that mythical market value number is, because none of us are going to all get the same number. And now we start to have this conversation about how are we going to market the house to get you the best price. And today what we're going to do is we're going to tell you exactly how we make this happen, not just for our sellers, from a buyer perspective as well, because when Sydney is out with buyers, it is a question that comes up on how much should I offer? We're going to talk about these. We've got a list of 10, and then we're going to go in depth real quick on what is that number one tool. And so Sid, thanks for coming on as always.
Thank you.
Let's start off with what would be, to me, the second and third most important ones. Professional photography, whether it's just normal photography or whether it's drones and video, is an absolute, you got to have it, but it still to me isn't the number one reason. What happens on a buyer side when they're looking at photos online and looking at houses? What kind of feedback do you get from buyers?
Buyers eat with their eyes first. So that is necessary in terms of getting people to come view the listing in person.
Yes.
You need to have good photography. And sometimes what we're seeing with the new AI things is AI staging furniture.
Right.
If done well, it looks nice, but typically how we see it is you get the AI photo of the living room with all sorts of furniture and weird distortions on it, and then they'll put the empty, vacant room next to it, but it distorts the image a lot if you don't do it properly, and a lot of the time, people don't even want the AI staging furniture in there. They don't care.
We want to have great photography.
Yes.
Some houses need more than others because, again, if you're in a little 600 square foot condo and there's not much to shoot, versus we're now in a really expensive home that needs drone, it needs overhead photos, it needs twilight photos. Like, there's different packages for different things, but when the photos and the video or whatever else are not a fair representation of what the house actually is, a buyer 9 times out of 10 is eventually going to walk in your house. And sometimes the photography makes a house look so fantastic. And in reality, it's not that great. And of course, that's our job to get people in there, but you don't want to make it to the point where it's so over the top that it doesn't win. And 3D tours and Matterport tours, they make me dizzy. I am not a fan of those. And anymore, if someone wants us to show them the home, it's almost better to do FaceTime and just walk them through the house.
Right.
Versus that. Do we get much feedback from buyers that say we really love these or that they're necessary in order for them to look at a house?
They don't even look at them. They don't watch them. I never hear about, oh my gosh, this listing had the greatest 3D tour I've ever seen. I have never once heard it. Now, I have seen people on, say, new home construction websites where you're trying to figure out the floor plan. You're trying to figure out the floor plan, but they're still not an accurate representation of what the house even looks like.
In our photography packages, we do have that floor plan in the house. And I think that floor plan does help people even more just looking up from above at a picture than it does when it starts moving and swerving. It makes me nauseous sometimes, honestly.
Anymore with the floor plans, because that's part of ours. We get that automatically, thank goodness. On listings that don't have the paper floor plans or the flat layouts, people ask, they say, can you get the floor plan? And honestly, I mean, we could, but people like the flat floor plan way better than the 3D.
Yeah, which also goes in, and Sid mentioned this briefly, is home staging. I always say it's better to take pictures of a house with furniture in it than empty 9 times out of 10. Right. Every once in a while you have someone with such bad furniture, it's better that it's empty than if it is. But I'm not a huge fan of staging furniture. I'm not a huge fan of digital staging. And realtors are going to really sell you on this as a way that we're really going to up the value of your property. And in some properties, it does make sense. I am a fan sometimes of putting towels and flowers and a few things around. And again, having some furniture in there that gives you some context of the size of some spaces is good, but I'm not a huge staging fan. I know in some markets and some communities that might be better than others, but in my market, I just don't think it's necessary. What do buyers say when they walk in? I mean, they know right away when it's staging furniture.
Yes. And I actually had a client that we made it a joke that every single house we went into, we would try to figure out if it was staging furniture or not. And it was hysterical to us. Sometimes you're right. It looks really nice in certain spaces, or if you have a larger room that you kind of need to figure out, where am I going to set my couch? There are times when it makes sense, but significantly improving your listing, it doesn't happen super often.
That's why we bring a tape measure so that we can just measure the space out that you need. This next one is one of my favorites. And again, we're talking to sellers more today than buyers. And this is one where we're going to push on you that this is some great added benefit and feature. And most buyers who are searching all over the internet, whether it is Zillow, Realtor.com, Homes.com, Redfin, Compass, Remax, whatever website you're searching on, they're like, hey, we're searching for these homes online. Yeah. I don't think most people realize where that information actually come from. And every listing that is on the MLS gets in what's called an IDX feed. And what happens, Sid?
They go automatically to Realtor.com, Zillow, Redfin, Homes.com.
And all the details of all that information and all the photos, where did they come from?
Comes from us.
So as realtors, when we hire our guys to take pictures, to do all this information, to put all that content in there, all that Zillow and all these other websites are doing is pulling our feeds.
Yep.
So honestly, if you were on a home search with us getting a home search directly from our MLS, you're actually going to get that slightly sooner and quicker than on one of these other websites. Now, I realize on these websites, it is fun for you not to have a real estate agent
Sure.
and be able to surf in the middle of the night and do whatever you want to. And I appreciate that. But if they try to tell you some added marketing benefit, every home ends up on there now. There are some companies now that were doing some off-market listing. There's some other things, but it is not this great, huge benefit, which leads me right into social media marketing.
Mm-hmm.
I list stuff all over them social media, and honestly, it's more for them to get to know us and reach out to us so we can get them information. Have you ever had a client said, hey, I saw this listing on TikTok. We'd like to buy that house?
No, never, not once.
And doesn't matter what social media platform it's on, it's really more of a marketing tool and a way for realtors to become known in their areas and to teach them about areas and locations. Why we do all of this all over, and on long form, we can do a lot more stuff than on short form. But when you're marketing to these places, you're really more marketing ourselves than we are the properties. So if you're someone who's thinking about selling your home, whether it's here in Northern Nevada or whatever market you happen to live in, click the link in the description below and get a free copy of our seller's guide that will help you know the things you need to know to be a smart and savvy seller. Another one is email marketing and agent-to-agent email blasts. How many of these do you see every day?
Too many.
And if we don't have a buyer looking in a certain area or a certain price point, what do we typically do when we get blasted with all these emails about the new listing, the price-adjusted listing, the new whatever it might be, hey, we're having an open house? What do we do with most of these emails?
Delete them.
Because we can't physically keep up. There's so much activity in our area that it wouldn't make sense. So people will sell you on, hey, I'm going to tell my database of clients, I'm going to tell all the realtor friends I know about this new listing, and we'll try to sell it that way. Yeah. And I'm not saying it doesn't help or isn't beneficial, but it is not really that great of a marketing tool, which goes right into the whole open house thing. We have a friend in another community, another market, open houses in that community because it's small, works amazingly well there. I am not a huge open house fan. And again, people say, oh, we'll hold your house open, we'll get people through. Typically, open houses are for what reason?
They are for the listing agent to get more clients. And typically, it's not buyers for that particular house. It's typically sellers. It's almost like a job interview for free.
Yeah.
People that are coming in are almost vetting you as a realtor to see if you're capable of listing this house more so than active buyers, more in our community. We geographically are so spread out. I've done plenty of open houses. I have had really successful open houses. I've had absolutely dead open houses. We are too far apart that if you are not living on a main feeder street, people are never going to see your sign.
And it leads, like I said, open houses are also, like the other one you talked about, are broker/agent networking events, which is basically just an open house where they're trying to attract realtors to come see these houses. And usually you see people do it on higher end stuff. We just got invited one the other day. They'll do champagne and food and try to get a bunch of people through there. But you know what? If we don't actively in our client list have people looking in those areas, us coming to those is doing nothing more than being able to tell the seller, hey, we got 10 people to come through here to take a look at your house and they're going to go see if they can find buyers for us. We're doing that all the time anyway. Because if we have actual buyers that are loan pre-approved or cash buyers that have signed the buyer rep agreements, they're ready to look, which that's going back to the open house one real quick. It is a nice way though now for buyers to be able to see homes without a buyer rep agreement because we're there representing the sellers. And it is a way I think for a lot of agents now, that's how they're trying to attract more clients for themselves. It is not a great way to get a home sold, which leads us right into the last one before we give you the best reason, which is all the print stuff. When do you usually see print things?
At an open house.
Or it's on the sign out in front of the house, or once you've already made a showing appointment, they've made some fancy brochure they put on the kitchen table.
That I already printed.
But we've already been to the house at that point. And so I think the print materials were a much bigger deal when I first started in real estate way back in the day. But anymore now, you can just put a QR code on your sign, put a QR code all over the internet, and people can get all the most accurate, updated information for all of these things. As realtors, this is part of our marketing package. We're going to sell you on all these things. But at the end of the day, as amazing as all of these things are, and amazing as all these things can help and can work, there is one thing that if it is incorrect, no matter how much of this stuff that is amazing, cannot help. And it is the number one marketing tool and thing that we use. And no one is going to want to listen or hear this is what?
Price.
So price is the number one tool. So I tell people, because we get the question all the time about how long is it going to take my home to sell? That is 100% dependent upon price. No matter what we do. And so when we have this conversation, I think days on market is kind of a skewed stat because if we really did our homework and research and we had 5 realtors and 5 appraisers and 5 lenders, we all had to come up and say, what is the value of your property, we're not all going to get the same number. So I'm not saying there is this one number that if you do it, it's going to happen. But if we agree that we think your house is worth 500 and you want to list for 509, sure, that's okay. If you think your house is worth 500, you want to list for 625, it doesn't matter what we do on this list. It is not going to make a difference. No different if we thought your home was worth 500 and you're like, Brian, I got to get this thing sold immediately. And you say, let's list it for 475 and maybe we can get a little bit of a bidding war and get it up a little bit. That's a strategy some people use. I'm not a huge fan of that, but the goal always is if we listed your house and you got a full price offer in that first week or two or in the first 30 days, you should be happy, not mad. Not, I should have priced it higher. I could have got more. Because that is not how it works, because good pricing creates demand, and that is what we're looking for. If you have bad pricing, you can't overcome all these things. The house will just sit there forever. And this is when, if you price it right at the beginning, you might have got your price, but now it's been sitting on the market. And anymore, 30, 60 days. Once it's 60 days on the market, what do buyers say?
What's wrong with it?
What is wrong with it? And a lot of times there's nothing wrong with it. And in my day, back early on in my career, 60, 90, 120 days on the market was normal, but nowadays it is not. If you're on 90 plus days, people want to know what the hell is going on. So that initial price is very important and it is very critical. And when sellers don't want to work with you on that, or they want to say, hey, I'm going to try a different strategy, you never want to have to come back and say, I told you so, because it's not a good way to interact with your clients, but pricing has to happen and we have to do the research on that. So that is the number one question we get. How long is my home going to take to sell and what price should I be at? And they all want the most money in the least amount of time with no headaches. And that's what we're trying to go. So price plus all this great marketing, that's the combination we're looking for. And when you're looking from a buyer side perspective, when it's not priced right, there's nothing we can do to make them change their mind.
Yes. And the buyers are savvy to it. The buyers knew the second that the market corrected, they figured it out way before the sellers did. And we still have sellers that are resistant to this change and they're going to sit on the market. These buyers know exactly what's going on. They are so smart. They've been researching for years because the housing market has been a little bit level.
We'll give them the example we just had, literally yesterday.
Yes, we were helping clients and we had written an offer on it is a nice house.
Listed for
$775.
But it was listed initially for $850 and it's been on the market for a long time.
Yes.
Okay, so now we're down to $775.
Right.
Questions, why? Why so long?
Right.
So what do we tell them?
First off, overpriced, definitely. And we had a non-reseller. But we ended up moving on from that property and we were going a different direction. But basically this seller shot himself in the foot with two potential buyers on his home.
They end up buying something else. And so again, price is the most important thing. And again, if you are a seller, because most of you that watch these videos are people moving here that are buyers, but a lot of you have to sell a house in the market that you live in. And we want you to know, if you don't have a realtor there, we can help you find one. We've helped a lot of our clients who moved here get a realtor in their local market because maybe you live in your house for a really long time and you don't have a person there. But it is a critical thing. All these other marketing tools are awesome, but if you don't price right, none of it is going to matter and none of it is going to work. So if you're someone who's thinking about either buying or selling here in Northern Nevada, check out this video we did right here all about what's going on in the real estate market.